Part 54. Fantasy, Me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 532. At the same time. Sumeru Realm. In an inconspicuous mountain range, there was a sudden sound of shaking. Almost instantly, mountains collapsed, ancient trees were broken, rocks penetrated the clouds, and a burst of ink-like brilliance rose into the sky, covering the boundless sky and turning everything within a million miles into darkness. A deep, cold aura spread like a tide, making everyone feel as if they had fallen into an ice cellar and felt chilled all over. How is this going? The expression of an old holy lord suddenly changed. He quickly raised his head and looked into the distance. After seeing the scene of great changes, his face instantly turned pale. Is that Tianmang Mountain? Tianmang Mountain. For many creatures in the Sumeru realm, it is a very distant word. It is so far away that most people have almost forgotten that there is such a place in the Sumeru realm. But it is far away from the sects near Tianmang Mountain. There are still some records. That is, Tianmang Mountain was one of the main triggers for the destruction of the Tianyang realm in the past. The history can even be traced back to when the underworld swept through all the heavens and worlds. At that time, the Tianyang realm was standing on the side of the underworld. It was glorious for a while. But with the defeat of the underworld, the Tianyang world was inevitably liquidated, and Tianmang Mountain was naturally one of them. The battle at Tianmang Mountain was the battle to clean up the remnants of the underworld after the underworld was destroyed. First, it is not very eye-catching among all the worlds. After all, the existences of those supreme worlds will not place their main goals on the Tianyang realm. But for the Tianyang realm, it is still a battle. It was a disaster that nearly destroyed the world. The entire Tianyang realm was destroyed in that battle. I don't know how many immortal kings participated in the battle. It is said that a quasi-immortal emperor once took action and divided the Tianyang realm into three with one palm. As for Tianmen Mountain, just under that palm, the smoke disappeared. Countless years have passed. Tianmang Mountain has undergone another change today, and it has swept across millions of miles. Countless creatures are trembling, and they feel as if an ancient demon is about to awaken. Come here. This scene has to remind them of bad things. Especially the smell. It is too ancient. There is a strangeness in the ancientness. It seems to be something recorded in legends and ancient books. The breath of the people in the underworld is cold and cold, without a trace of life. Tianmang Mountain's spiritual energy is thin, not to mention the sect, even some monsters can hardly survive. If such a phenomenon occurs today, I'm afraid something big is going to happen in the Sumeru realm. The old holy lord's body was trembling, and his old eyes were looking at the sky in the distance without blinking. Deep in his eyes, there was a solemn look. Holy Lord, for countless years, Tianmang Mountain has long returned to the commonplace. Could today's incident be related to the demon saint from the past? Beside the old holy lord, there is a majestic middle-aged man, standing with a sword on his back. His aura is very fierce. He has entered the realm of a saint. In other worlds, he may be considered a strong man. But in Sumeru in the world, it can only be regarded as the middle class. After all, the most peak existences in this world are immortals and mere saints. They are still not in the forefront. As for the demon saint in his mouth, he was the master of Tianmang Mountain back then. Even more so. The strongest person in the entire Tianyang realm. At that time, the Tianyang realm was controlled by the demon clan. Since the destruction of the underworld, the Tianyang realm was divided into three, and the demon clan in the Sumeru realm also failed to recover. Finally, it completely withdrew from the stage of history. To this day, in the Sumeru realm, although the demon clan still has some strength, compared with the human race, it is far behind. As long as the human race is willing, the demon clan can be destroyed at any time. I can't tell clearly, it's best not for the former lord of Tianmang Mountain to be born. The old holy lord shook his head and said softly, maybe. The middle-aged man pondered for a long time, and suddenly his eyes lit up, and he was excited. Holy Lord, could we have thought wrongly? Today's vision is not the resurrection of the Lord of Tianmang Mountain, but something that happened in Tianmang Mountain in the past. Weapon, revived. Hearing these words, even the old holy lord couldn't help but tremble. That's right. After so long, and after such a cruel battle, who else can survive in Tianmang Mountain? Although the lord of Tianmang Mountain was originally a giant immortal king and was already an immortal existence, how could he escape the liquidation of the heavens and worlds? Thinking about it with his toes, the other party couldn't escape at all. Not only could he not be able to run away, but even the other demon clans in Tianmang Mountain could not run away at all. They must have been slaughtered. In this situation, it is hard to say that it is really just a weapon. After all, Tianmang, after the destruction of the mountain, countless people searched for the treasure, but in the end no one found anything. The fact that future generations did not find it does not mean that there is none. Maybe it was the people of Tianmang Mountain who hid their secrets deeper? What if my family, if the sect can obtain the foundation of Tianmang Mountain, it may be able to soar into the sky. Although it is the inheritance of the demon clan, the human clan can also use some of it, even if the giant immortal king left nothing more than 100 things, but even 1,000th is enough to make them look down upon the Sumeru realm. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 533. Boom. Outside Tianmang Mountain. An ancient chariot cut through the void, rumbling, crushing the sky, making the sky tremble, and quickly rushed towards Tianmang Mountain. Among them, a figure like a god and a demon sat majestically. Suppressing the world, as if a god is patrolling, shining all the world, even if just a wisp of breath escapes, it can collapse everything. There is no doubt. This is a strong man above the emperor. After seeing Tianmang Mountain after the accident, he rushed over as soon as possible. Everyone in the sect where the old holy master was located changed their colors when they saw this scene. This is my great emperor of Sumeru realm. The old holy lord hurriedly sent an order and said, quick, take people with you and rush to Tianmang Mountain. This time, I am afraid that the news about Tianmang Mountain will not be concealed. In fact, this is exactly the case. The great changes in Tianmang Mountain shocked the entire Sumeru realm as early as the first time. At this time, I don't know how many people are rushing over. Maybe in a day or two, this will become the center of the Fenjianji meeting. The matter is related to an ancient inheritance, which will involve the Supreme Immortal King. It is estimated that all the practitioners in the entire Sumeru realm will be unable to hold back. Even the immortals will come. Even the immortals will come. Cultivators far away in the Jinwu world, there will also be people hiding in the dark, waiting for opportunities. Yes. The middle-aged man nodded quickly, turned and left. Soon. He took more than 20 strong men from the sect, soared into the sky, and flew towards Tianmang Mountain. Although, their sect's reputation is not outstanding, but their strength is not good. They are not strong either, but one thing is that they are closer to Tianmang Mountain, so they might be able to get a slight advantage. Even if they get only a small benefit, it is probably enough for them to benefit from endlessly. Boom. In the Sumeru realm, countless powerful people rushed to Tianmang Mountain quickly. There was a loud noise. It shook the sky for eternity. A violent breath rose into the sky, shattered countless stars, penetrated the high sky, and the breath was like the aura spread like a king's yang, causing the earth to sink within 1,000,000 miles, causing ripples of billions of feet. I don't know how many ordinary creatures had no power to resist when faced with this aura. In an instant, they turned into Fermi Fen. Even some cultivators found it very uncomfortable and struggled to resist. Demonic spirit. On the ancient chariot, an emperor opened his eyes. His eyes were like a divine sword, cutting through the void and looking into the depths of Tianmang Mountain. I don't know when an ancient temple appeared somewhere. This temple has a whole body. The dark, lingering dark green symbols reflected the void, making everything around it extremely cold, as if it were a palace from hell. It makes people shudder when they see it. Sure enough, it is the temple left by the demon saint. The emperor murmured to himself, his eyes getting brighter and brighter. No wonder no one has been able to find the inheritance left by the demon saint in Tianmang Mountain for so many years. It turns out that his temple is still so well preserved. With this premise, as long as the palace is not born, I am afraid no one can get any benefits. Boom. The temple made of mysterious materials began to shake, blooming with rays of brilliance, making the whole world tremble. There seemed to be an aura in it that was growing crazily. In a short time, it had reached along the strength of the living environment, and at this point, is still getting stronger, as if there is no end. The countless people who came here can't help but feel shocked. Could this be the weapon left by the demon saint? Could it be that the demon saint from Tianmang Mountain did not die at all and has survived to this day and age? Impossible. Although the demon saint of the past was extremely powerful, he had absolutely no way to survive in the face of the liquidation of all heavens and realms. The current situation seemed to be caused by the channeling of his weapons. You see, there are demonic writings on the palace, as if they are alive and coming out. High in the sky near Tianmang Mountain. Many people have arrived and they are talking about it. The eyes of countless people were all focused on the Black Palace. Under their gazes, the palace changed little by little, and the words on it seemed to turn into a black sun. It bloomed with dazzling brilliance, and every word was twisting, as if it had turned into a divine phoenix or a real dragon, trying to break out of the wall. At this moment, the demonic writings that appeared on it condensed into an ancient scripture that no one could understand. A layer of mist shrouded the whole body, adding a bit of mystery. Everyone knows that this ancient scripture must have been left by the demon saint. Although humans cannot practice it, they can understand it carefully as long as they get it. By analogy, there is no guarantee that there will be no big gains. Especially the existence of the immortal realm, at this moment, the excitement is even more difficult to contain. They seemed to see that the realm of the immortal king was waving to them from afar. This is the creation of our demon clan, and you humans also want to get involved. A demon emperor walked out. He turned into a stream of light and rushed towards the temple crazily. He said in a cold voice, when I become a demon saint, I will definitely sweep the entire Sumeru realm. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 534. No, Monster Emperor. Stop him quickly. We can't let him get the Tianmang Mountain inheritance. Countless people exclaimed. The demon clan has been suppressed for countless years. If they really get the inheritance of Tianmang Mountain, I am afraid that the demon clan will directly turn over and become the master. At that time, the human race will be in danger. More importantly, the involvement of Tianmang Mountain in the past was really too great. Because they are related to the underworld. In today's world, of all the sects that have been passed down for a long time, who doesn't know the rumors about the underworld? Even if I haven't seen it, I have heard it to some extent. If there is some inheritance from the underworld, that would be great. Never give it up to the demon clan easily. Immediately. Dozens of rays of light shot through the sky, all with terrifying auras, like dozens of blazing suns, shining in the sky, rushing towards the palace in front with long tail flames. Everyone wants to take the inheritance as their own. Buzz. There was no obstruction outside the palace, and everyone stepped inside. But the moment they entered, the entire palace was filled with a mysterious aura, and powerful demon power slowly condensed. There was a life in it. Breath, thrive. This kind of breath is definitely not something that a weapon can have. It is a real living creature. This. A human emperor's expression suddenly changed, and he lost his voice and said, "No, there seems to be something strange in this palace." Behind him, there were more than a dozen emperors, each of whom had a look of surprise. They felt as the demon power became more and more powerful, it gradually surged like Wan Yang. This moment. Not just the people who go into it. Even the people outside have sensed this strange change. Go back. Someone shouted. In fact, without him opening his mouth, some people had already started to retreat quickly, especially those who entered the hall. They were about to turn around, but the few people in the front suddenly turned into a blood mist, and their blood was like a rainbow. Filled with the void, it was quickly absorbed by the surrounding walls and ground. Countless people saw the scene and felt their scalps numb. You must know that this is the great emperor. The essence and blood of a great emperor is definitely very valuable, and there are also it contains endless risks. Who dares to absorb it all at once? On the contrary, the palace under your feet has not only absorbed the essence and blood of several great emperors, but it seems that there is still more to come. There is great horror here. Someone murmured. He turned into a stream of light, turned around and flew out. Beside him. Aha! 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 Everyone flew back, transformed into a divine rainbow, and rushed toward the exit. Boom! But just a second before they left, the entire hall suddenly lit up with endless brilliance, and all the divine patterns were revived, like chains of divine rules, strangled from all directions. Everyone inside was killed. It turned into a cloud of blood mist. No one could escape. The emperors who entered it all fell in just a few breaths. This sight made countless people's scalps numb. This was the emperor who had practiced so much. After countless years, some cat or dog on the roadside died like this. Not even a scream was heard. This is too terrifying. How so? What happened? Why has Tianmang Mountain become so dangerous? Those who survived by chance were all pale and at a loss. By now, even if he is a fool, he probably understands that the palace in front of him is extremely dangerous. Even if he is as powerful as the emperor, he has no power to resist. What about those who are not as good as the emperor? I'm afraid it will turn into ashes as soon as I get close. This should be a backup left by the demon saint in the past, to prevent his inheritance from falling into the hands of others. A strong man said after careful consideration. His words were recognized by many people, but there were also many people who were beating drums in their hearts, because some people sensed that the breath of life in the palace was becoming more and more vigorous. It seems that the next second, he will wake up. My intuition tells me that maybe Tianmang Mountain was not destroyed back then. There may be people who survived until this life and now want to rule the world again. The most urgent task is to let the seniors from the true immortal realm or the immortal realm take action immediately to smash this palace into pieces to prevent the creatures inside from resurrecting from the dead. Someone looked at the palace below and said in a deep voice. As soon as these words were spoken, many people shook their heads and rejected them. Not to mention the demon clan, even the human clan could not bear to smash the palace. After all, among them. But there is a demon text, which is an ancient scripture. If the palace is shattered, what benefits can they get? The more dangerous the inside is, the more the side will reflect, the more benefits there will be inside. Whether someone is alive in Tianmen Mountain or a weapon is revived, instead of guessing here, it is better to break the formation outside the palace first. A man said indifferently. When his words fell to the ground, behind him, A spear rose into the sky, bloomed with endless brilliance, and fell from the sky. It hit the temple hard and exploded with violent energy. Fluctuation. The next moment. In the palace, two scarlet rays of light illuminated the past, present and future, shattering billions of stars. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 535. What is that? Countless people were horrified. This scene was too terrifying. Two bright red brilliants, like pillars supporting the sky, reached up to the sky and down to the 9 netherworlds, stirred up the wind and clouds in the sky, and covered the vast earth. There was a layer of sad brilliance. Countless people mistakenly thought that they were in a dream. It was too unreal. Eyes. These are two glances. Someone discovered the scene in the palace and shouted loudly, "The ancient demon saint in Tianmang Mountain is not dead at all, he is still alive. This is a great emperor. In other places, he may be able to dominate countless living beings. But here, he can't even maintain his past demeanor. Because he noticed an unusual aura, which was sternness. The power of the heavens and the world is simply not comparable to his. Even the figures in the immortality realm are far inferior. And even more terrifying existences than the immortality realm. There is no doubt that the person in the palace is a person. There is an existence at the level of an immortal king. Immortal king. He is almost immortal, the heaven and the earth are decaying, and my immortal character has survived from ancient times to the present, and has experienced a battle in the underworld. How can he be someone he can look up to? That demon saint from Tianmang Mountain. Many of them heard the words, and their expressions changed. This was a bit unbelievable. Immediately, many people began to retreat quickly. Regardless of whether what the great emperor just said was true or false, the situation was already very clear. Tianmang Mountain is not a place to stay for a long time. If you continue to stay here, it is very likely that no one will be able to leave again. But just when they were about to leave, boom! A loud noise came. In the palace, the dark light was brilliant, various divine patterns were flying, and the laws were endless. A terrifying figure gradually solidified, with an aura of wilderness. It seemed that it had arrived from ancient times. Now, beside him, various visions emerged. There was a kunpeng roaring into the universe, spreading its wings and striking, causing the stars to collapse. There was also a green dragon lying across, its body rolled up, and the endless starry sky turned into powder. At this moment, it seemed like countless things. The ancient mythical beast, together with this demon saint, reappeared in the world. Can this world accommodate my existence? A soft murmur. It sounded suddenly between heaven and earth. The voice was very old, indifferent, without any emotion, and resounded throughout heaven and earth. There was a trace of curiosity and a trace of doubt in the voice, which seemed to be very puzzled. Has Tianyan realm returned to its original state? Deep in the palace, the energy and blood fluctuated like the sea, and there was a figure sitting there. Looking from a distance, the mist there was misty, and a majestic figure was like a mountain, full of a kind of magic, and the depressing atmosphere almost made people were suffocated. The moment this figure appeared, the entire Sumeru realm seemed to collapse. Many mountain peaks rumbled and shook, and the earth cracked. As the mist gradually dissipated, the figure inside gradually revealed its true form. This is a middle-aged man with jet black hair. However, his eyes are silver white, sharp, and attractive. Although this man is in human form, every creature present understands in his heart that this definitely not a human race, but an ancient demon saint. He once ruled the Tianyan realm. If I remember correctly, the Tianyan realm was completely split in that battle. How could it now be reunited into one and become much wider? The demon saint is sitting in the temple, with his hair hanging down, and the stars are flowing, like a Milky Way. It is bright and gorgeous, and it is impossible to ignore. Just sitting cross-legged, he seems to have become the center of the entire world. Countless people held their breath for it, they didn't even dare to take a breath. His doubtful eyes swept over every corner of the world, and the more he looked at it, the more he frowned. The Tianyan realm at the moment was much weaker than he imagined. There is not even an immortal king. Originally, when the Tianyan realm was integrated, it stands to reason that there should be at least a few immortal kings sitting in charge. Just now, he was worried that there would be a few immortal kings when he was just born. The immortal king came to stop the attack. But now it seems that I have worried too much. Today's Tianyan realm is frighteningly weak. The immortal realm is the strongest existence. As for the immortal king, there is not even one. It seems that the current world was just now. It's like merging together. Although the world level has been raised, the strength of the creatures in the world is still far behind. Eccentric. The demon saint murmured to himself. After thinking for a long time, he couldn't figure it out, so he simply stopped thinking about it. His gaze went beyond the creatures present and looked towards the distant void, where the Lord of the Underworld was. Location. Before. The reason why he woke up was because he sensed the call of the Lord of the Underworld. After countless years, will the Underworld rise again? Only. The demon saint thought in his heart and said softly, the strength of the Lord of the Underworld is a bit ridiculously weak at the beginning. He was a giant of the immortal king, and even the realm of the quasi-immortal emperor was about to touch the threshold. Obey the command of the Underworld. Isn't it because the power of the Underworld is huge and it is of great benefit to him? Now, the Underworld is so weak that even the Lord of the Underworld has never reached the realm of the immortal king. Such a person wants to make him bow and obey. It's a bit whimsical. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 536. Hell. After all, it's just a dream. The demon saint stood up slowly. His eyes were bright and his body was burly, like a mountain. As the words rang out, the surrounding starry sky shook, wind and thunder roared, lightning flashed. Between the heaven and the earth, dense laws appeared at the same time, and there were countless horrors. A scene flashed in the void. It was a bloody scene with corpses everywhere. Countless beings like gods and demons were coughing up blood in the sky. It seemed like the end of the world. Countless worlds were broken, and there was no people can be spared. What is that? Some people looked at the scene in the sky and felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. This scene was so terrifying. They saw existences in the immortal realm being beaten into powder with the wave of hands. Several immortal kings were also beaten. It pierced the chest and shattered the head. Deeper in the picture, there seemed to be two supreme figures, standing at the end of the world. They were confronting each other, and the mist in the middle was turbulent, covering everything. All the pictures were hazy and could not be seen clearly, only vaguely identifiable. Two humanoid creatures were taken out. It's so terrifying. This seems to be an ancient battlefield, affecting countless worlds. Countless powerful people are participating in the battle, and the world has turned into blood. It was almost a catastrophe. Even the characters in the immortal realm can't make a splash among them. The emperor said with lingering fear. Just looking at the picture is so terrifying. God knows how desperate it must be to be in it. This kind of war that destroys the world, they are in it, and they are almost no better than an ant. Aftermath swept over, not to mention them, even the world would be shattered. This is the original battle of the underworld. A being in the realm of immortality walked out of the void. This was an old man with gray hair and a stooped body. There was an aura of decay all over his body. His large robes covered his body and made a hunting sound. At this moment, the old man, his face was very solemn. He looked at the scene in the void and sighed. He understood. This was just a reappearance of the scene from that year. History has long been buried in the long river of time. The reason why it reappears today is because of the person who participated in it. The demon saint in this battle has revived and returned. The scene everyone sees is completely from the perspective of that demon saint. The battle when the underworld was destroyed. After hearing the old man's words, many people fell silent on the spot. They are not stupid. This kind of scene has appeared. Doesn't it mean that the demon saint may not only be fine, but even recovered from his injuries after so many years? When such a terrifying figure appears, looking at the entire Sumeru realm, who can resist it? Not to mention the Sumeru realm. Even if the current several worlds are all tied together, they are no match for the demon saint. Not long ago, the Xianguang realm underworld just swept across the world. Although the Xianguang realm underworld has been destroyed, its strength is still there. Do you think the demon saint is born today? Will it have any connection with the Lord of the underworld? Someone's doubtful voice sounded slowly below. As soon as these words came out, the whole audience was silent. If there was no connection between the two, they would not believe it at all. When countless people were silent, suddenly, a terrifying coercion fell from the sky and fell on everyone. Everyone felt as if their shoulders were heavy, as if they were carrying a mountain. The pressure was so heavy that everyone could not breathe. In the palace, the demon saint's his eyes retracted and fell in front. He had a panoramic view of the expressions of the people in the scene, and a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Human race. The humble ethnic group at the beginning actually reached the situation it has today. Back then, when the Tianyang realm was still intact, it was also the time when he was at his peak. The human race was completely suppressed, and many strong human race men were forced to leave other worlds. All the human races who stayed in the Tianyang realm, none of them have any power to resist. Life or death depends entirely on his mood. Countless years have passed. Times have changed. The human race, which used to be just the rations of the demon clan, actually became the master of the Tianyang world. Even after his spiritual thoughts swept over, he only in a certain corner of the world, a few sporadic demon clans were found. Not to mention the demon clans in the immortal realm. Even the demon clans at the level of true immortals and emperors were very few. It can be seen from this that during his absence, here, what level has the demon clan fallen to? Now that I'm back, it's time for the demon clan to rise again. The demon saint murmured to himself. He put his hands behind his back and his eyes were deep. There was a murderous intention in him, which became more intense, but it didn't take long before it was hidden again. Before that, some things should be resolved. Some ants, maybe they still don't know what kind of person they have awakened. Do they really think that an immortal being can order an immortal king? Ridiculous. The last two words fell to the ground. The demon saint stepped out and disappeared in an instant. It was as if he had never appeared before. There was only a black palace standing there alone, reminding countless people that what had just happened had not happened before. Not an illusion. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 537. Gudong. After the demon saint left for a long time, an immortal level being swallowed hard and murmured, "This is a living fossil." When he wakes up today, it is difficult to predict what the Sumeru realm will be like in the future. Does fellow deist Mo know where the other party has gone? Next to him, the white-haired Mo Qingfeng took a deep look at the palace at his feet and slowly shook his head. He is very strong, one of the best in the Sumeru realm, and has already stood at the peak of the immortality realm. But even with his eyes, he still couldn't see any trace of the other party. Maybe Amo Qingfeng pondered for a moment and said softly, it's related to the Xianguang realm. Xianguang realm? Another person in the immortal realm frowned and whispered, underworld. Good. Amo Qingfeng nodded. This Tianmang Mountain demon saint is after all a subordinate of the underworld in the past. Even though the underworld has been destroyed, the marks on his body will not disappear with time. After all, he is still from the underworld. Now that the underworld was born, he also woke up. No one can guarantee that there is no certain connection between the two. Makes sense. The immortal realm figure nodded with approval, but then he said with some worry, but the underworld in the Xianguang realm has been destroyed. What plans should the demon saint make? Amo Qingfeng was not surprised when he heard this. After all, the news of the destruction of the underworld, like a hurricane, has long swept through every current world, ranging from top cultivators to people who have just started. Almost everyone heard the news. It is rumored that the underworld is destroyed, and behind it is the master of Tianji who is leading everything. Amo Qingfeng murmured. To be honest, this moment, in his heart, he felt a little happy. Because he also checked a lot of news about Tianji Tower. Judging from the information from Zhenzhou, although Tianji Tower has only one owner, it is still an unshakable behemoth. Given Tianji's strength, he had to start as an immortal king. Such a terrifying existence is definitely not something that the current Sumeru realm can deal with. At the moment, the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain woke up, and the two immortal kings were standing side by side. Just when they were having a headache, they suddenly discovered that there was some resentment between the two. This is an unexpected surprise. When two tigers fight, one of them will be injured. As long as they wait and see how the situation develops, they can ensure that they and others will not be affected. Of course, while sitting on the mountain watching the tiger fight, in their hearts, they still hope that the owner of Tianji will win. This is the best situation. At least the owner of Tianji will not interfere in the world. On the other hand, the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain is different. In addition to once surrendering to the underworld, this person was also the ruler of the Tianyuan realm. His ambitions are extremely great, just in case the demon saint wins. Then the Sumeru realm is about to enter a dark age. The owner of Tianji. The face of the person in the immortality realm next to him changed. This person's name has been so popular since the world merged. It's hard not to know. If this person is willing to take action, things may turn around. But this person seemed to have thought of something and spoke again. The demon saint of Tianmang Mountain is, after all, a figure from ancient times. His strength cannot be underestimated. No matter what he said, the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain experienced that ancient battle and still survived. There is no doubt about his strength. But the owner of Tianji, to be honest, he didn't have much confidence. In the final analysis, the number of times Tianji Tower Master took action was too few, and a few of them were against figures like the emperor. Even a great emperor can be crushed by them. From this point of view, it is almost unknown how powerful the master of Tianji is. Only his ability to deduce Tianji makes countless people fear him. Let's wait and see what happens. Amo Qingfeng sighed and said helplessly. At this time, the other side. Outside the boundary of Sumeru, on a warship, several figures sat opposite each other, each of them looking very solemn. Wang Che held a jade slip in his hand, and after a long pause, he slowly said, I just got the news that something happened in Tianmang Mountain. Tianmang Mountain. The other people looked at each other suspiciously and said with some uncertainty, in the past, where was the demon saint? Good. Wang Che nodded. That demon saint has been dead for countless years. Logically speaking, there shouldn't even be any scum left. What else could happen? Is it possible that the inheritance he left behind has appeared? A fellow traveler thought of this, with a look of regret on his face, and said softly, if this is really the case, it is really a pity. After all, the inheritance of the demon saint is of great importance. If you can get it, you will have hope for the future immortal king. It's not what you think. Wang Che shook his head and said in a deep voice, the demon saint from Tianmang Mountain is not dead, and he suddenly reappeared in the world not long ago. What? Hearing Wang Che's words, several people around him suddenly stood up and said in disbelief, you said that demon saint is not dead. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 538. Right. Wang Che sighed softly and said helplessly. Although he didn't want to believe it, the news had already reached him, and it was conclusive. It was more likely that it was all true. The demon saint fell for countless years, and all the forces under the underworld were wiped out. How could it be possible that the demon saint survived in the end? On Wang Che's left, an old man said in disbelief. His name is Lu Xun. He has been following the young master for some time. Their young master, in his previous life, was born not long after the destruction of the underworld. For the underworld, they know the deeds of the underworld relatively clearly. Together with them, they have also heard the young master mention it several times. Precisely because they understand the horror of the underworld, they also understand better how intense the liquidation was after the underworld was destroyed. It can be said that. But all the forces that have any connection with the underworld have been swept away. No one can be left out. And the demon saint of Mang Mountain that day belonged to the hardcore group, and no one should have survived. The news has come back, whether you believe it or not, it has become a fact. Wang Che said helplessly. He never expected that at this critical moment, a demon saint would come out of seclusion. Brother Wang, do you still remember what Master Tianji said before, that there will be a mysterious force that will help the Lord of the Underworld? What you said Master Tianji was referring to? Could it be that this is the demon saint? Another voice said in a deep voice. It should be him. Wang Che took a deep breath and said softly. Before, they were still doubting who dared to risk the disapproval of the world and help the underworld at this time. Now it seems that except for the Lord of Tianmang Mountain, no one else will. There's a second person. If that demon saint had not died in ancient times, would he be close to becoming an immortal emperor in this life? Lu Xun frowned and said. The time when the underworld was destroyed was too long ago. It was so far away that during this period, many amazing and talented people were born, and the ancient demon saint was already very talented. In addition, such a long time. I guess. Even a pig should be extremely extraordinary now. I don't know this either. Wang Che smiled bitterly. It is estimated that only he himself knows what is going on with the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain. Now it seems that we need to speed up the process here. The most important thing is to deal with the Lord of the Underworld as soon as possible. Otherwise, when the demon saint unifies the Sumeru realm, we and others may all suffer. Lu Xun said softly. They were not creatures of this world, but came to the Sumeru realm to find the reincarnation of the young master. At this moment, the young master has found it. The inheritance of the underworld has also been revealed. As long as they are killed, lords of the underworld, they can just slap their butts and leave. As for what the Sumeru realm will become in the future, that is beyond their control. After all, an ancient demon saint was born, and he can think of the other party even if he thinks with his toes. As soon as he was born, he had to unify the Sumeru realm and rebuild the glory of the ancient times. If it was possible, he probably wouldn't mind even if the underworld was rebuilt. In this way, the Sumeru realm and the demon saint would be separated. A shocking conquest will inevitably break out, and it would be a bit unwise for them to get involved in it. After all, the young master has not yet recovered his peak strength. Now, against a real immortal king, it is a situation where more losses are lost than wins. Late. Wang Che glanced at Lu Xun and said lightly, according to the news, not long ago, the demon saint had left Tianmang Mountain and was heading towards the unknown. Hearing this, Lu Xun raised his eyebrows, and a bad premonition arose in his heart. He was worried, could that demon saint be, now? What else could be worth worrying about that demon saint? Countless years have passed, and everything about him has been buried by time. At this time, except for the news from the underworld, there is probably nothing worth worrying about. And he and others were preparing to deal with the Lord of the underworld. In this case, wouldn't it be possible to face an immortal king who just appeared? This possibility cannot be ruled out. Wang Che sighed quietly. Previously, the master of Tianji had already spoken. What he said would never be unreasonable. If nothing else happens, we must first pass the demon saint level if we want to suppress the Lord of the underworld. The whereabouts of the demon saint are unknown, and it is still unclear whether he is here to help the Lord of the underworld. How about we act first? Lu Xun couldn't help it. A trace of killing intent flashed in his eyes, and he looked at the other side of the Xianguang realm. Knowing that an immortal king was coming, it was an unwise choice for him and others to wait here. But the young master hasn't arrived yet, and we don't know if the Lord of the underworld has any trump cards. If we act rashly, we might alert the enemy. A person next to me said with concern. So are we wasting our time like this? Lu Xun said, displeased. The strength of an immortal king is impossible to predict. It won't take him long to reach the Xianguang realm. Every minute and every second at this moment is extremely important. He really doesn't want to. I saw a fairy king intervening in it. Maybe, young master. Wang Che spoke. But the words are not yet finished. Outside the warship, a clear sound of footsteps came in. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 539. Footsteps landed. A figure in white came in from outside. The visitor has a tall figure, a face like a crown jade, two sword-shaped eyebrows that fly diagonally into his temples. He is very tough, and his eyes are as deep as the stars in the sky. Little Lord. Wang Che said in surprise. Although any of the few people present are much stronger than the young master, in the final analysis, the young master was an immortal king in his last life. His heritage over countless years is extraordinary, leaving behind there are countless backup tricks, which are far beyond what a few of them can match. A few of them were about to salute, but the young man stretched out his hand to help them up. No need to be polite. The young man put his hands on his back, came to the front seat, leaned over and sat down. His eyes swept over the faces of several people one by one, and he said, I already know what you just said. Young master, the appearance of an immortal king is no small matter, not to mention that the other party is a giant immortal king in ancient times. Are we now? Lu Xun said in a deep voice. Don't worry, it's just an immortal king, I can handle it. The young man said confidently. Young master, are you sure? The eyes of the people present lit up. With the young master's words, they couldn't help but feel relieved. I can't say I'm 10% sure, but I'm still 90% certain. The young man had a confident smile on his lips. With the young master's assurance, these people looked at each other without saying anything. In their opinion, the young master would most likely take action personally this time. With the young masters, his strength can almost be said to be stable. However, Wang Che was still a little worried. He said worriedly, young master, the master of Tianji Hall has said before that someone will help the master of the underworld. With his character, he will not target without reason. Should we go to Tianji Tower again now? Although the journey from Sumeru realm to Tianji Tower is long, it is not a big deal for people like them in the immortality realm. A round trip will only take a month or two. But the key is, he was not sure whether the young master was willing to spend this time. After all, the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain had already been born. He might take the lord of the underworld away at any time. In 1 or 2 days at night, the situation might change. As for 1 or 2 months, what changes will happen in such a long time? No one can guarantee. If it doesn't work well, people and money will be lost. Previously, the owner of Tianji did not say where the lord of the underworld would stay, because of this, the lord of the underworld ran away, but it's not the Lord Tianji's fault. No, the young man was very confident. He took a deep look at Wang Che and continued, the reason why I was able to reach that point in my previous life was because I firmly believed that man can conquer nature. Although the master of Tianji can deduce the secret, some things always have some variables. Whether I know the future things or not, it doesn't mean much to me. But Wang Che still wanted to dissuade him. But the young man raised a hand and said without doubt, in the face of absolute strength, any external force is vulnerable. Although Mangshan Demon Saint participated in the ancient battle that day, no one can tell how much strength he still has until now. It would be too unfounded to worry about going to Tianji Tower at this moment. No matter how you say it. It is an indisputable fact that Tianmang Mountain once stood on the side of the underworld. Although the lord of Tianmang Mountain survived by chance, in the eyes of everyone. Although he survived, he must have paid a huge price. The price. Right now, an immortal king who is lucky enough to survive is facing off against a reincarnated immortal king. The two are fighting, and it is still unclear who will win. And the young man's confidence comes from so. Having said that, young people also want to see what kind of grace the former lord of Tianmang Mountain was like. After all, the underworld has been destroyed since he was born. He is still a little curious about that dark history. All right. The young man glanced at a few people and said calmly, I understand your worries. As long as I am around, there will be no trouble. Now let's go to the chaos. Don't let the lord of the underworld take the opportunity to slip away. He is not worried about dealing with the demon saint of Tianmang Mountain, but if the opponent wants to escape with the lord of the underworld, it will still be a bit tricky. After all, the opponent is also an immortal king. He must have a lot of tricks to defeat the enemy. At this moment, the other party is in the light, and I am in the dark. It can be said to be an excellent opportunity. After all, they have no news about the owner of Tianji. If I miss this opportunity, it will be difficult to get the inheritance of the underworld. Yes. Down below. Wang Che nodded. He raised one hand, and a golden symbol flew out from his palm and penetrated into the interior of the warship. Suddenly, the entire warship seemed to come alive. There was a buzz sound. The warship let out a soft roar, directly shattering the void and rushing into the chaos. At the same time, the other side of the Xianguang realm, the lord of the underworld suddenly opened his eyes again. He stood up suddenly and looked into the empty chaos, frowning tightly. Do not know why. At that moment, a bad premonition suddenly arose in my heart. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 540. Lord, what happened? Next to the Lord of the Underworld, a subordinate asked curiously. If he remembered correctly, this is the second time the Lord has shown this expression during this period. The last time he had a bad premonition. What about this time? It seems that a powerful enemy is coming. The Lord of the Underworld murmured. The brows of several people nearby frowned inadvertently, then relaxed, and said quite relaxedly, my lord, don't worry too much, maybe help will arrive soon. That being said, these people can't help but beat drums in their hearts. Because they don't know what the strength of the helpers called by the Lord before is. If a group of great emperors come, it will be over. Although the emperor is strong, it is of little use to them at present. No matter how many come, they are just cannon fodder. Yes. The Lord of the underworld looked at the chaos and said softly, help is coming soon. He looked at the mark on his palm, and his eyes revealed a thought. This is the secret method of the underworld, which can control the lives of the people under his command. The brighter the mark is, it means that the people under his command are getting closer to him. And at this moment, this mark is almost clearly visible. But he still doesn't see the person who comes to help him. What does this mean? It means that the other party is probably waiting and watching. It is precisely because of the other party's attitude that he feels the feeling became worse and worse. At this moment, he felt that he seemed to have overestimated himself and underestimated the other party. It had been so long since the underworld was destroyed, and no one knew whether the other party had any strange thoughts. Moreover, he did not clearly, are the people coming from the other side a person from the underworld era, or a descendant of that person? Just because the ancestors surrendered to the underworld, does not mean that the descendants of that person still recognize the existence of the underworld. After all, long years have passed, and people's attitudes have changed. But it will slowly change as time goes by. But knowing this, he still didn't want to directly obliterate the other party with his mark. It's easy to kill the opponent yourself, but what happens next? A powerful enemy comes and he kills his helper. The result of this is probably that he will be pushed to a dead end. Hopefully it's not the worst outcome. The Lord of the underworld said softly. As soon as he finished speaking, not far away, the void cracked, and rays of light flew out, like thousands of sword lights, penetrating the world, extremely dazzling, and behind the brilliance, there was a simple warship. This warship has existed for an unknown number of years. Its hull is mottled and covered with traces of swords, spears, and halberds. Before it got close, a fierce evil aura rushed towards it. It seemed like an ancient wild beast, coming from a distant place. The era has come to this day. On the bow of the ship, a young man in white stood there quietly, with deep eyes, elegant clothes, and flying hair, as if he had trampled all the ways under his feet. The laws of heaven and earth seemed to be issuing from cry, obey his orders. Immortal King. Is this an immortal king? The Lord of the underworld's heart skipped a beat, and his heart suddenly stopped at this moment. The immortal king can command thousands of ways, and one person can sweep across the heavens. How can he stop such an invincible person? He can't stop him no matter what. Unexpectedly, the danger he had anticipated would be caused by an immortal king himself. Could this person be the master of Tianji? After all, he had never seen the master of Tianji with his own eyes. But soon, his restless heart slowly calmed down. As the distance got closer, the cultivation of the man in white at the bow of the ship was clearly revealed. Not only was the man not an immortal king, but he was frighteningly weak. It seemed that he was not even a saint. He was just barely touching the threshold of the Holy Lord realm. Such a person, to him, is not even an ant. In the eyes of others, at best, he is regarded as a young genius. But for a young genius, to a giant who has grown up, he is not even as good as a fart. After all, who was not a genius when he was young? As for why the other party has the power of the immortal king, in a short period of time, the Lord of the underworld can't figure it out. Are you the Lord of the underworld? The warship crossed the sky and arrived above the Lord of the underworld and others. The man in white had a smile on his lips, looked down at everyone from a high position, and said lightly, Hearing these words, the Lord of the underworld has not yet spoken, but the people beside him are already extremely unhappy. When did an ant-like figure have the qualification to look down on them like this? It's just that this person has too much temperament. It is special, with a unique style. There is no heaven, no way. It seems to represent heaven and earth, and eternity. It stands there like an immortal monument that no one can surpass. Just because it gives people this feeling temporarily stop the Lord of the Underworld's men from taking action. A person's strength can be hidden, but his style cannot be hidden. Apparently these people mistakenly thought that this young man's strength was, it's most likely not as simple as it seems. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 541. Who are you? The Lord of the Underworld spoke in a deep voice. This man's strength is average, but his style is absolutely outstanding, especially the three people standing behind him, all of whom are at the pinnacle of the immortality realm. Among the several worlds that are now merged, the immortality realm is undoubtedly the most standing person. There is a person at the top of the pyramid, but there are three people behind this person. They all look like they are bowing their heads and obeying orders. It is not simple no matter how you look at it. Can ordinary people command the existence of the immortality realm? No matter how you look at it, the other party seems to have bad intentions. With his appearance, the Lord of the Underworld cannot help but be cautious. After all, he is different from the past now. It's just that his injuries have not recovered, the underworld under his command has been destroyed, and the soul summoning pearl is missing. It can be said that in his hand there are not many trump cards left at the moment. If he starts a war rashly, this young man and the three immortals behind him can bring him huge troubles. If he is not careful, there is the danger of eternity being wiped out. It seems you have acquiesced. The smile on the young man's lips became even wider, with a feeling that everything was under control. What the Master Tianji said is true, the Lord of the Underworld is really here, and he is seriously injured. It is not too easy for him to be a lost dog moreover. He looked around and saw no trace of anyone else. Only a few subordinates stood beside the Lord of the Underworld. Just these few miscellaneous fish. To be honest, he didn't care at all. If it was the Lord of the Underworld, if the Lord only has these abilities, maybe. Even some of the trump cards he prepared before seem a bit redundant now. It seems that the news about Tianji Tower is not deceiving me. The young man said lightly. Tianji Tower. Hearing these three words, a cold light flashed in the eyes of the Lord of the Underworld. He will never forget why the Underworld was destroyed before. Wasn't it because of the guidance from behind the Lord Tianji? Now the Lord Tianji is taking action. This is, do you want to push yourself into a dead end? Did the owner of Tianji ask you to come? The Lord of the Underworld said every word, his voice was extremely cold, as if it could freeze the universe. Yes and no. The young man said with a smile but not a smile. Ah! The Lord of the Underworld sneered. He obviously didn't believe what the young man said. Are you determined to do right by the underworld when you come here today? Good. The young man lifted his feet from the warship and walked down step by step. He came to the Lord of the Underworld and said calmly, if you voluntarily hand over the inheritance in your hands, I can spare your life. The inheritance of the underworld is no small matter. If the Lord of the Underworld wants to die and wants to take the inheritance with him to the afterlife, then he has no good way. From the current point of view, it is best for the Lord of the Underworld to hand it over voluntarily. Method. It turned out to be for the underworld. The Lord of the Underworld suddenly understood. It seemed that he only had the inheritance of the underworld in his hand, which could be coveted by countless people. But he did not expect that this day would come so quickly. Just you. The voice of the Lord of the Underworld was cold, with murderous intent blazing in his eyes. The inheritance of the underworld is the foundation for one's livelihood. If he loses these things, how is he different from others? As for this person's talk of handing over the inheritance of the underworld, if you can spare your life, then you just have to listen. If you really believe it, then you will be a complete fool. Act recklessly. The young man sneered. He raised one hand, without any unnecessary movement, and pointed at a point in the void. A pitch-black spear suddenly condensed out. The spear broke through the air and made a harsh sound. The divine light was invincible and shattered the space. The aura was so sharp that the oppressed people could not breathe. Poof! There was a soft sound. Next to the Lord of the Underworld, a sad flower of blood bloomed, and a figure was completely pierced by the spear and nailed to the void. Blood flowed down the spear, dyeing the void red. Everyone was shocked. Their hearts were filled with shock. It was too fast. From the moment the young man showed his hostility to the moment he took action, there was no warning at all. Everything was done in the blink of an eye. Even if they had been prepared for it, but it still didn't block it. A peerless spear instantly nailed an immortal being to the chaos. The young man clenched his fist with one hand, and the spear made a slight sound, causing terrifying fluctuations. A clanging sound shook the immortal realm figure into powder. Blood splattered everywhere. The black spear shook endlessly, and blood splashed on several people, but they did not dare to make any move. The scene, it was almost deathly silent. Everyone's hands and feet were cold. Even the Lord of the Underworld suddenly realized the seriousness of the situation at this moment. The strength of the young man in front of him was definitely beyond his imagination. It seemed that his strength was low. But the strength that exploded in that moment was beyond that of a person in the immortality realm. Even in his prime, he couldn't resist it. Immortal King. Only the Immortal King can kill an immortal realm person with one blow. Who are you? The Lord of the Underworld said in a hoarse voice. He didn't believe it. This person has always been unknown. If he has this strength, he must be able to rule a world. At least in his knowledge, the Xianguang realm, the true martial realm, and the Sumeru realm. There is no immortal king. Only Lord Tianji, who has been hiding in the dark, has this strength. Is it possible? This person is Lord Tianji.